I'm Steve Wood, recovered alcoholic. Welcome to Common Solution Step Study. We're on step 2. So last week we talked about psychic change, and a psychic change is a radical change in our belief system, and a belief system that is centered on self. That belief system is a belief system that leads us to resentment, to fear, to guilt. The steps produce a radical change to our belief system, to our thinking. And when our thinking changes, our beliefs change. And when our beliefs change, our desires change. And when our desires change, our desire to drink disappears. So let me say that one more time. When our thinking changes, our beliefs change. And when our beliefs change, that's when our desires start to change. And when those desires change, our desire to drink disappears. Tonight, we're going to discuss, the willing to have a new belief system. So we're going to go to page 43 of the big book. We'll be jumping around all night. Just fair warning. No surprise, people. So 43, bottom of the page. And this is kind of interesting. He puts this here because it's the end of the examination of step 1. And he says this: once more, the alcoholic at certain times has no mental defense against the first drink. He's talking about the obsession. Except in a few rare cases, neither he nor any other human being can provide such a defense. His defense must come from a higher power. I can't remember Bill Wilson was one of the first persons to put the higher power, brought it to light, the word higher power. It was from another book, and my mind's slipping, I'll remember it later. But what he's saying in this paragraph is what's most important. Is he's saying you can have all the self-knowledge in the world about your alcoholism, about your own condition, and it's not enough to stop the first drink. That's because of the obsession. And our human power cannot help us. Not ours, not our parents, not our wives, not our husbands, family, friends, recovery people, spiritual advisors, but God can. So we must find God. And the one thing you always hear in the rooms, people say, I gotta get closer to God. And we're going to find out tonight that that's not really the case, because we're pretty dang close. I'm going to put up a slide. All right, step 2. Came to believe that power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So let's break this down. Power is the ability to direct a course of events. That means like to make something happen. It means, and also from a philosophical sense, you could say it means to possess some type of deep internal strength. It comes from a Latin word called portere, which means to be able. Now, belief, we're going to look at deeper in a little bit, but it comes from an old German word, which means to hold with trust. So it means to have trust and confidence that something is true or it's real, but you don't need proof to have a belief. So power greater than yourself is that was coined by a guy named Jim Burwell. And originally it says Cain believed that God could restore sanity. Jim Burwell was an atheist in Alcoholics Anonymous who did the steps, but still had a personality change. He just looked at it as a universal aspect, if you want to call that being atheist, I don't know. But he said power greater than yourself had an emphasis behind it, and it wouldn't intimidate people, and Bill agreed. And what it means is to have power then greater than the one you possess. Also, same thing as higher power, supreme being, God, whatever you want to call it whatever you want to call it love, whatever. But the most powerful word in there, in this whole sentence, is the word restore, I believe. That means to bring something back to its original condition. Like you see the show on TV, American Restoration, the guy gets all these old video game machines and stuff and old Coke machines, and he turns them into something new, brings them back into something that they were, that they were at one time. He makes them brand new again. So think of it, just keep that in mind. Sanity means soundness of mind, also called whole. Whole also means complete. So insane must mean incomplete, unsoundness of mind. And that's, so it means something is missing or unfinished. So sanity does not get returned by simply choosing to believe that that power can restore my sanity. It would be a two-step program if we could do that. So that's the look at this, the step 2 we'll be looking at. But I want to go one step further. I want to go to page 84, because with this stuff, there's a lot of misconception with what we're doing here in step 2. I've had people come to me in tears and say, I don't know what to do. My sponsor's telling me I can't go further until I believe in something. Again, it would be a two-step program if we could do it that easy. But, or they tell you, well, it's going to happen. It starts to happen in step 2. See what page 84 says, and it tells us something very interesting. Now, before I read this, remember, we Gnostics for step 2 starts on page 44. This is 40 pages later, with lots of directions and guidance and action we must take to get here. So it says, and we have ceased finding anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time, sanity has returned. He's talking about step 10. So what they're promising up in step 2, came to believe that progress could restore to sanity, happened around step 10 when they were doing it. There's a lot of stuff in there. So we must, do inventory, discuss it with another, let God remove it, make amends, and do step 10 repeatedly and get to know God in step 11, of course, give it away. All that pays, all that's part of the recipe. But what is step 2 in the simplest form? Step 2 is basically like a street sign. Kind of says, come this way. You're powerless. We want to show you something. We want to give you hope. It's basically a mirror of step 1. Powerless, power, right? Powerless and power. So from there, I'm going to go to page 45. So this is a sentence that's going to show us this is a God program, not a self-help program. And it says, where it says its main object. So it says its main object, we're in the middle of that page, somewhere on the middle page, its main object to enable you to find a power greater than yourself, which will solve your problem. Notice closely, it does not say, and this is the way a lot of people read this, the main object of this book is to enable you to find a power greater than yourself so you can go fix your problem or solve it. That's what we thought we had to do for years. We'll go get God, but I'm still going to fix it. Like tell God, wait here, I'm going to go take care of this. That simple wording, which will, meaning God will solve our problem, makes this a spiritual program. If we could just turn to God and go fix it ourselves, then self-help. That simple wording makes this a spiritual program, not self-help. It's a spiritual solution program so we can find the power we lack, that we've been hoping for, that we've been wondering why we don't have it. So, when a person, any person seeks a new life by using spiritual principles, one of the first questions brought up is God. Now, this is not the easiest subject for some. I think some just push it away because they want to evade it, right? I've watched guys come in, don't want to hear about God. They disappear, go out for 3 or 4 years, come back, and I'm ready. But it's not an easy subject. There's many seekers that walk into the rooms that said you'll hear things like, God was never there for me. God didn't answer my prayers. One of the ones you often hear is, I'm separated from God. Or they don't take, they don't take action so that they can stay in that mindset of God. And, it seems very conscious that, contagious around the rooms, these thoughts of God, and people don't want God talk. It sounds crazy. Some areas that go, that's in your area? I never heard of mine. Well, I've been in meetings where it's like you start, you start talking at a meeting and they're like, no God talk. No God talk. And it's like they practically cut people off. It's kind of amusing because the center of recovery, the nucleus, is God. And the goal is to have a relationship with God, whatever you want to call it. And to just end any controversy, I want to tell you how, what God looks like in this book. First of all, from the title page to 164, the God word, God, is just the word, is mentioned 134 times. 134 times. But the word with other words which refer to God are also mentioned just a few times. Creator, 12 times. Father, once. Father of light, once. Great reality, once. Higher power, twice. Maker, twice. Now here's a few of them that sound the same. Power greater than himself, 4 times. Power greater than myself, 6 times. Power greater than ourselves, 4 times. Power greater than themselves, 1 time. Power greater than yourself, once. Power beyond ourselves, once. Power, 4 times. Spirit, 5 times. Spirit of the universe, 4 times. Supreme being, twice. The, Thee, twice. Thy, 9 times. That's sure a lot of God talk. It's that combined with the word God, that's 196 times. But I'm not counting words like he, him, or his that are capitalized in mid-sentence well over a dozen times in this book. Yet meetings, you don't hear like God talk where we should. People in recovery either hate God talk, or they shy away from it, or they absolutely embrace it and love it because they've done the process. There's be a lot of God talking here tonight. That's the thing. So I'm going to start off with talking about belief systems. So I'm going to talk about one aspect first, as many like to live in theory. We love theories. And what is a theory? It's a set of accepted beliefs you do not know because you haven't experienced it. So let me explain that better. So anything in life I know is from direct experience with it. Anything else is a theory. So if Frances, for instance, I just guess that she's a librarian. So I say, oh, she organizes books in a library, right? Well, that's a theory. And I go there and I hang out with her for a week and I experience her in the job. I know, and I can tell you exactly what she does from direct experience. So anything in life we know is from experience. Anything else is a theory. So theory comes from the Greek word meaning speculation. And how many decisions have you made based on theory? We love drawing conclusions based on theory. We love to run things based on theory. Did you ever do that with God? Condemning something you never experienced. That's what they call it in the big book, contempt prior to investigation. To condemn something before you even do it. I'm going to talk about 4 types of understandings that they mention. So many words in this book. 2 of them they mention straight on. Some of them we break down as it. I'm going to put up this slide, and this is called a faith index. Can everyone see that? I think so. So, oops, sorry. The first one is atheist. Now the A, you see the A on there, right? The A is it's a Greek word. It's Greek. The A it's a prefix for not, right? So an atheist is one who rejects religious beliefs or spiritual beliefs and denies the existence of God. They don't try to prove God doesn't exist. An atheist does not have an affirmative belief system that there is no God. They simply reject the idea altogether. If you meet a true atheist, that's what they'll say. It's a mental conviction without proof. You're making a mental conviction without proof. So this chart, this person obviously does not believe, and they make no decision, they take no action, they don't get results, and they grow. Now, I've heard of atheists making a decision to do the steps, have some type of experience, and stay sober. I have also watched them become very spiritual, but I never talked to an atheist, an Alcoholics Anonymous, that's a real atheist, because they're looking for happiness, looking for peace of mind, they're looking for love, and I'm like, we're on the same boat here, just we use a different word. So, but also falls into the category of not knowing. So an atheist can have some type of transformation. I believe anyone that does the steps has something happen. So the next one is you drop the A and you got the word theist. And now this is a deep one. This is the believer I mentioned earlier. We believe means to hold trust and confidence that the existence of God is true or real. You have confidence in that. So this person believes only, but they don't make a decision. They don't take action. They don't get no results. Believing is very similar to theory. I mean, there's churches in my area that pack 3,000 people on a Sunday, and most people are content with being believers. But do they know? We're going to get that in a minute. Believing in some of the theories, you don't need to experience God. You just believe. It falls into the category of not knowing. You don't need proof to believe in something. So belief is handed to you. Someone else has given you that belief. This is what you're supposed to believe in. This is what you're supposed to do. This is how you do it. You're good, you're bad. Someone's given that to you. It's a belief system. If a believer were to honestly define their relationship with God, they usually comes out as like deep admiration. They love God and know about God. They don't know God. And a belief, no matter how sincere, if not followed by action, is not enough. No change. They have, again, like the other one, mental conviction without proof, just like the atheist. So is a belief in God sufficient enough for long-term recovery? No. Is a belief in God sufficient to begin your journey? Absolutely. But it's not. It's sufficient. You don't have to, though, because I didn't believe. I couldn't grasp it, and I'll explain to you more about my personal aspect a little bit later. But I came in here very closed-minded. But saying you believe that God is true or real is not going to give you the psychic change I mentioned earlier. Entire psychic change. This word entire is a key word, complete. So here's a good belief analogy. In Lake Fork, Texas, they have the largest, largemouth bass around, like 22 pounds, they're huge. They're monsters, nothing like in the world. You can take my word for it and believe this fish based on my testimony. And you can go tell all your friends, oh, my friend told me about this. Or, you can go with me to Texas and change your belief to knowing by catching the fish, right? And know the largest fish. Do you want to believe it, the story, or do you want to know? And the question is, what's more important, belief or knowledge? We're going to see that in a second. So the next one is agnostic. Now, a lot of us were in this category when we came here. The A means not, just like the other one. So take the word Gnostic, put an A in front. And agnostic is unsure of the existence of God based on unsatisfactory or insufficient evidence. I believe, they don't deny God exists, but they want proof. They might look at the stars on a certain night and go, there's something out here, but then they go, I don't know. They really don't believe or disbelieve. They're just unsure. I like to say skeptical, doubtful at the same time, about the existence, but they cannot confirm God or deny God. And they don't disapprove of it necessarily. To them, the existence of God is unknown. Uncertain claims from lack of knowledge. Again, it falls in the category of not knowing. I think most of us, like I said, were that when we came in here. So this person, oops, God, I keep doing that. This person believes, ? But they're not going to go out beyond that unless they take action. Now, here's a good way to put it. Again, it's also a mental conviction without certain proof. A good way to put it is, let's just say David and I are swimming in water, right? And we're swimming in the water and we come across Kicken. And we're just looking to have fun somewhere. We don't know, we're kind of down on our luck. And we see Kicken and we go, how are you doing today? And she goes, isn't the water beautiful? And I go back to Dave, I go, I know how we can get out of our funk. Let's go find the water. So where goldfish don't know we're in water, it's the same thing with God there. God's closest to no breath. I mean, I was just like that. I was like a fish in the ocean looking for water. The thing about it is if none of them take action, there's no difference between atheist, agnostic, or any of those first three. No one gets results. None. That's the important thing. Next, we come to the word, oops, God, sorry, keep hitting that. They refreshed my thing and now it's all super sensitive. God, sorry. Let me see if I can move this thing out. There it goes. Gnostic. So Gnostic means to go beyond believing and gain a spiritual understanding of knowing God. Intimidates a lot of people, the word, as a result of spiritual conversion or a spiritual conversion is some type of experience with God or awakening with God, right? They know God exists because they've experienced it. Anything in life is from experience. Once you know, the lights are on, they can't be turned off ever again. And so this person, they believe, or maybe they don't, but they make a decision. They take the action of 439. They have the awakening experience, conversion experience, spiritual progress, growth, and they know. That's as simple as it is. Knowing God is experiencing God, and it's engaging in a personal relationship with God. To know God personally, there's a fundamental difference between knowing about God and knowing God. Do you know God or do you just know about God? And I thought knowing about God was the thing, and there's a difference between belief and knowing. With a belief system, there's always doubt attached. Someone handed it to you. Like I said earlier, someone handed it to you. Someone, and what happens is someone well, you experience it with knowing. No one handed it to you. With belief, someone handed it to you. So with knowing, with knowing, there's no doubt. Knowing it will never let you down in times of crisis. Your beliefs will let you down in times of crisis where you're like, oh my God, I can't believe, instead of just giving it to God because you know God. So as you see in the chart, knowing isn't something you can do at night where no one knows. It's a 24-hour commitment. It requires involvement, participation, commitment, and being Gnostic is more than something you do or don't do. It's more about reading about or acting spiritual. It's a way of life. In other words, knowing God is a spiritual life because we, plug into God. We are plugged into God. It's our source. And when we receive strength, inspiration, guidance, direction. So the more we know God, the more we know hope, the more we know peace, the more we know more happiness. I'm going to have those characteristics, oneness with God, they call it. So I'm going to close this up and just I mean, today I know God because, not because I know about God, because I have experienced God. Just like I know Jason, not because, I don't know about Jason. I know him. I've experienced him. I spent time with him. There's a story I used to hear. This guy, I went to this place one time. It was a spiritual weekend type thing. And this guy did this experiment, and it sums up really well. And this experiment, what he did was he asked, does anyone in the audience that does not know what a mango tastes like? Some people raised their hands. So they picked one person, and knowing that everyone else knows what a mango tastes like. So what they did is they took 6 people from the audience. Each of them whispered something different into the guy's ear, right? And then he told the audience from what he heard from other people what a mango is going to taste like. And then he ate the mango and experienced it, and he had a different answer. He experienced it. And just like we don't know what a mango is going to taste like unless we experience it, we cannot know God without having experience. We cannot know God based on the testimony of another person, just like that. And a lot of us grew up maybe in a religious aspect to where we took the testimony of another person as, to knowing about God. There's an old saying I used to hear was, why did we get doubt? And the old saying is, a dog that does not see the rabbit eventually abandons the chase. And the story is that there's this dog chasing a rabbit, and the rabbit disappears, but all of a sudden keeps running like he's chasing a rabbit, because he's not known the rabbit disappeared. Next thing you know, there's 16 dogs behind it, all chasing the rabbit. Well, only one of them knows there was a rabbit. All the other ones eventually leave. It abandons the chase. And we're the same way. If we keep chasing God and the testimony of another person, we abandon the chase because we received doubt. I mean, how do you gain experience by, you gain the experience of riding a bike? How do you do that? By watching, YouTube videos on bicycles? I guess someone would. No, you make conscious contact with the bicycle. You get on the bicycle and ride it. You must make the effort to make conscious contact with God. Once you establish that, there's no longer doubt, and you have something to grow with and something to work with. Being a believer does not cost you anything there's no sacrifice. Knowing God costs something. So before we say, I want to know God, understand it's costing something. You have to be willing to let something go, let a part of you go that you've held on to. And it's usually stuff we don't need, like resentments and fear, but we're reluctant to give it up. What's standing between you and God is the question. And there's something very unique about once you know something, and I'll tell you a quick story. About a year ago, I picked up my daughter and her boyfriend, they're teenagers, from the gym. And I was watching them work out, and there's this guy across the way from us, and my daughter's like, look at that guy. And he was like 28 years old, and he was pretty chiseled. He wasn't like a bodybuilder, but his technique was amazing. His technique stood out. And I said to her, I can do that. And they started to laugh. Well, I hadn't worked out, at that point in 24 years. But so I started working out when I was 15, and all through high school, I would you have a PE time where you could work out after school, you could volunteer work out, and I'd go to Gold's Gym and work out. I did that till I was 25, and until my addictions took over. It was one of the things I never thought, oh, I'm not gonna work out today, it just disappeared. But I was never, big and buffed or anything like that. I was in good shape, but I had really good technique. So recently, 4 months ago, I lost almost 40 pounds, and I decided to go to the gym. After 20 years of not going to the gym, I was scared and I was nervous. I'm not going to know how to do this. My body doesn't hold up anymore, blah, blah, blah. I got a bad back. I've been in disability for years. As soon as I started working out, something miraculous happened. While I couldn't lift what I used to lift, all the technique was still there. Everything I had learned 27 years ago or 30 years ago was still there, was second nature. The body I had if a 95 was long gone, the muscles were long gone. The bones have, it's not the same bones I once had. Many of the cells are gone. I don't have the same brain I had back then, all different cells, yet the knowing was still there. It's all, everything else had been replaced, yet the knowing was still there. So my point of telling that story is knowing never leaves us. Once you know, it's always there. It never goes away. And some of us, I heard it said more than once. Once we know God, we take on the characters of a child. All you got to do is look at an 8-year-old. They get my 9-year-old gets mad at me for 30 seconds, yells at me and forgets about it. We held on to resentments for 30 years. It's, one thing I want to talk about is how often we base God on visual. Let's go to page 48 in the second paragraph on 48. Visual. All right. The practical individual of today is a stickler for facts and results. Nevertheless, the 20th century really accepts theories of all kinds, provided they're firmly grounded in fact. We have numerous theories. For example, electricity, everybody believes without a murmur of a doubt. Why? This ready to acceptance? Simply because it's impossible to explain what we see, feel, direct, and use without reasonable assumption as a starting point. Everybody nowadays believes in scores of assumptions for which there is good evidence, but no visual proof. And does not science demonstrate that visual proof is the weakest proof? So think about that. Visual proof is the weakest proof. We all believe in atoms. Maybe some of us have, but through a microscope, have we seen one? Within them is protons, neutrons, electrons. Have you seen those? But we know they're there. We don't doubt it. We've never seen, we know that they exist. There might be someone here that is more certain that electrons exist than God exists because science tells us so. People all the time say they believe in matter that cannot be seen. And then you ask them about God and they say, oh, no way. Because they want visual proof. Dead set against God because God cannot be seen, cannot be explained. Neither can electricity 100% be changed. They still can't explain electricity. But we don't doubt it. We're seeing it right now, but we're seeing the results of it. And I see the results of electricity. Do I disbelieve it? I see the results of God everywhere. Yet people who see the same results doubt it. People want to condemn what they can't figure out. But the modern view of the universe is 1 billion years ago, there was a bunch of rocks and somehow the rocks turned to flesh and started thinking. The modern intelligent view, what sounds more, intelligent, or some power beyond all power has something to do with all this. We might say it's a big bang, but then who flicked a switch? Just saying, And another thought is protons, electrons, neutrons, you go beyond that, you get into particles, no mass at all, just vibration. Science can explain that. Well, what creates that vibration? God. Just saying, tell that to a scientist and, they'll run from you. So let's get into some deeper stuff on 45. A lack of power. That was our dilemma. Lack means zero. It's like if I owe David $100 and I say, David, I lack $100, here's 20. No, it means I don't have $100. For me, I thought it was not lack of power. I thought it was lack of friends, lack of money, lack of sex, lack of relationships, lack of the right car, the lack of the right clothes. And if I pursued that stuff, I'll have happiness. Same thing, the right drugs, the right alcohol. Whatever I lacked and I pursued outside myself. This is an inner journey. We had to find a power which we could live, and it had to be a power greater than ourselves, obviously. But where and how do we find this power? That's the most important question in step 2 right there. Where and how? Location and method. Location and method. So what's the location of the power? What's the method we use? So first we're going to look at the method. Go to page 25. I'm going to put up a slide. Notice the title of this chapter we're going to be moving on to. There is a solution. So solution is a method I use to bring me to the answer. So 5 times 5 equals 25. Now, I love doing this up on the wall of a room where people can shout back, but don't unmute yourself because I'm recording it. But it's amazing how many people say, when I say, what's the solution? They say 25. No, that's the answer. So what is the solution? They'll say 5 times 5. That's the problem. What is the solution? The solution is multiplication. So, the solution is multiplication. I use this method to bring me to the answer. So we have a problem, allergy obsession, right? The solution we use is steps 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Some people say, well, the solution is spiritual awakening or God. And you could say that, but I need a solution, a chemical aspect. That's a chemistry, my mindset. 4 through 9 is going to bring me to that solution. That solution. So that's the solution. Let's see what it says on 25. It'll tell us more. So let's see what it says about this 4 through 9 deal. How we find God. Almost none of us like the self-searching. Sounds like step 4, right? Self-searching, soul-searching, self-analysis, inventory, deep examinations of my thoughts, ideas, and actions so I can uncover what drives me to those thoughts and actions. And what does that lead to? Self-awareness, self-discovery. Look at the next one, the leveling of pride. That's all 4 through 9. I thought leveling meant to even something out like a leveler. The word synonymous with the word level is demolished. The demolishing of pride. Only the steps can do that. Look what it says next, the confession of our shortcomings. Sounds like 5. So confession is a deep word. Admission of wrong beliefs, wrong thinking, wrong actions that someone prefers to keep hidden. We, discovering our defects, which the process requires. Look what it says, for successful consummation. Consummation, it does not mean the end of something. What it really means to complete a goal we attend, a goal intended. What's the goal of 4 and 5? What's the goal? To let God remove, discard our defects and shortcomings, 6 and 7. And once I do that, I repair, uncover, discover, discard, repair. The method I use to have that happen is steps 4 through 9. Again, uncover in 4, I discover my defects in 5, I let them go in 6 and 7, discard them, and I go out and repair what those defects did. The interesting thing is we've been looking for solutions for a long time. I know methods I tried. I tried Christianity off and on my whole life. Buddhism, yoga, I love those religions. I love all that stuff. I still do yoga, meditation, at therapy, books, doctors, ministers, meetings. They're all great, but none delivered for a real alcoholic. All it did was trim away the branches. It was like taking a shower and combing your hair to look good. And when I ran out of options, I did the last thing I wanted to do, that inventory. I had no idea what journey I was going on. I was able to get to the root of my problem and remove the root altogether. That's the deep thing. So how do we find the power? 4, 5, 7, 6, 8, 9. So now we're to get into the location. And this is probably my favorite part of the book right here. This page changed my life. Page 55. I know some of you will be excited to go to that page. 55. This page changed my life. I grew up an old school Catholic home. It's very customary. I once thought it was like our nationality, but it was like I went to Catholic school, church on Sunday, altar boy, never miss a holy day, everything that went with it, everything. It's still there in a sense. But my mother, my grandmother, my aunties, the nuns in the school told me if I didn't pray, I would go to hell. They gave me a warning that God's watching. And if I did bad things, God would punish me. So I had this elementary view of God sitting in his cloud on this throne with a long white beard looking down on me, or on the world, so to speak, passing judgment on the mistakes I made. That was my conception. As I grew older, that conception changed. It went from punishing to he was angry, he was unloving, he was mean, judgmental, unhelpful, critical, never there. Didn't listen. He was old man up in the clouds with a long white beard, watching me. That conception led me to question the existence of God. So here's the scary part. I'm 31 years old, and I still had that conception of God in 2000. What I know today is that type of child conception of a punishing God only breeds fear rather than the love we experience from all loving God. Let's see what the book says. Yet we've been seeing another kind of fight, a spiritual liberation. That liberation means freedom, spiritual freedom from this world, people who rose above their problems. Here's what we used to do. They said God made things possible, and we only smiled. We had seen spiritual release right in front of our eyes, but like to tell ourselves it wasn't true. How many times did when I first came to AA and I call them do-gooders, the people that knew the steps and were all happy, I thought they were just do-gooders. They've been that way their whole life. That's what I thought. And these guys are lying. That's just the way I'm on. I couldn't find happiness. I didn't believe happiness. Look what it says here. Actually, we're fooling ourselves. We're deep down in every man, woman, and child is a fundamental idea of God. Fundamental means principle or foundation of God. It may be obscured by calamity, which is drama, by pomp, which is pride, fear, what others think of me type stuff, by worship of other things. But in some form or other, it was there. For faith and a power greater than ourselves, miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself. I remember when, my mom would read me, my grandmother actually would read me stories of healing and the way, ways of God. And I just couldn't grasp it. My ears were closed, See what else it says. So we finally saw that some kind of, now they're bringing he's starting to bring simplicity to God. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was part of our makeup, like who we are, just as much as the feelings we have for a friend. My sponsor at this point asked me $1 million question. What do you look for in a friend? And in so many words, I said like unconditional love, loyalty, honesty, respect, unselfishness, always there, grateful, calm, humble, open-minded, forgiving, someone I can talk to who listens. I never forget what my sponsor said. He goes, you're not going to find that friend who has all those things, but God does. That's all he said. And he started reading again. And here's what he read. This is the condition for finding God. Sometimes we had to search what? Fearlessly. It's a condition, but he was there. Look what it says next. He was much as fact as we were. Now here's the underlying part. We found the great reality capitalized deep down within us. And the last analysis out there looking everywhere else, it is only there where he may be found. If it says he may be found, the great reality is God. It was so with us, it says. So what's the great reality? God. Where is God? Deep down within us. So when I read that God was within me, and my sponsor said, you know, when you were out committing crimes or, you know, had to go tell someone off, but you knew you shouldn't. He goes, where was that coming from? Always inside your center. But just hunches, just a little, don't go there. You shouldn't do that. You know, Bill just explained God in one sentence. One sentence. One. You know, I was willing to believe in God at this point could restore me to sanity. It's as far as I could go. If I was looking out here for God, I was looking in the wrong place. I'll give you an analogy. So I love this story. So one night I go to leave my house and it's really dark where I live and I drop my keys. So I'm stumbling around the ground looking in the dark for these keys. And I see about 100 feet away, you know, back the third house down, there's a street light. Well, that's lit up. I'm gonna go look over there. So I go into the street light and I start looking for my keys. So my neighbor runs over and he's all, Steve, what are you doing? He says, I lost my keys. So he's down there looking. Within 15 minutes, there's about 8 neighbors on their knees under this light looking for the keys. And one guy goes, where did you drop them? Oh, I dropped them over there by my car. And he's like, you mean to tell me you dropped your keys over there and you're looking for God over here? I mean, sorry, you're looking for your keys over here? I said, it doesn't make sense to go around bumping around in the dark when there's light over here. And that's exactly what I used to do. I always was looking in the wrong place to solve my problems outside of me. I'm always looking for a solution outside myself. It made sense to go over and look under the light because I could see it. It was lit up. I'm going to read a poem about God within, and this is by Rumi. Rumi was a poet, one of the greatest poets of all time. Some of you know who he is. This is a beautiful poem. This is written way back, way back. This is by Rumi. I examined the whole Christian cross. He was not there. I entered the temple of the Hindus to the ancient Pagas, but I could not find a trace of him anywhere. I searched the mountains and the valleys of Kaja. He was nowhere to be seen. He was neither in the heights nor in the depths. My search was in vain. I then directed my pursuit to Kaaba and Mecca. He was not there either. I questioned the greatest scholars and philosophers. He was beyond their understanding. Finally, I looked into my own heart. It was there where I saw him. He was nowhere else found. Page back to the book. So we know God's within us, they're saying. Look what they say next. We can only clear this. This is the promise of God consciousness, which means the awareness of God. We can only clear the ground a bit if our testimony helps sweep away prejudice. That means our old ideas enables you to search honestly. Honest definition for honesty I love is the awareness of where I'm at. Do I have resentment? Do I have fear? Encourage you to search diligently. That's another word for thoroughly, like we hear all through this book. Thoroughly within ourselves, 4 through 9. Then if you wish, you can join us on the broad highway. The broad highway is living in 10, 11, 12, making my own amends. With this attitude, and that attitude is to always look within yourself. With that attitude, you cannot fail. What's the word for cannot? Never. The consciousness of your belief is sure to come to you. I started to realize that I was more, I would say 9 months into this thing. I was sponsoring already, I'd heard a couple of fifth steps. I mean, this time I wasted no time. I really flew. And I started to realize weird stuff that it wasn't weird. It was what I thought was weird. I wasn't this bag of dust I call a body. I was more than that. There was a life in me. And that's the stuff that catapulted me to make that third step decision. I mean, like you think about it. what is life? The definition is usually earthly existence from birth to death, but there's a great definition, I heard it before. A spiritual form of internal existence that transcends physical death. You cannot kill life. The Sacramento River, by where I live, has flowed for thousands and thousands of years. Is the water that flows through that today the same as what went through it yesterday? The life of that river never ends. Never. A person once asked me, is there life after death? A better question, is there life before death? Life is within us. I need a new attitude, like new relationship with my creator. I needed something more. I needed to get away with the idea, get around the idea of God. I was conditioned as a child. The steps took me on that journey. In the deepest dwellings of ourself, we're set free. And the God I discovered result of this action, I look for in alcohol and drugs and everywhere else. It was the last place I ever looked, deep within. I mean, an insane mind is always going to look for solutions outside themselves. Always looking for solutions outside themselves. All answers are within. That's why the steps are an inward journey and not outside journey. Our outer world provides a very limited perspective of who we are and what we truly are. It is our inner world that houses all who we truly are. Within, we discover strength, knowledge, guidance, encouragement, love, all that stuff. But it's from what we discover is we can face life effortlessly, where we discover inner peace. It is within we are reborn. And then the hardest thing for many is to let this inner world, no matter how much they know God, truly, fully run their outer world. And once you do that, and you discover at the same time that you have this beautiful temple inside of you and a special retreat place that is always available to you. You can take it wherever you go. There's a great story of this, it's a little full-blown kitten, and just new to the cat world, so to speak, and it's in this alley chasing around its tail. And an old alley cat comes up. And he's like, what in the world? And he's standing there watching the old alley cat, missing its teeth, missing an eye, missing an ear, been up and down the block a little bit. And he goes to the kitten, he goes, what are you doing? And the kitten stops and goes, I just got out of cat philosophy school. And they said happiness is in my tail. And if I catch my tail, I will have internal happiness. And the old alley cat laughs and goes, I too know that happiness is in my tail, but all I need to know is I can take it wherever I go. I love that, and that's what, that's what it's about. You hear people say all the time, I need to get closer to God. How closer you can get to God inside of you, that, I need, how do I get more closer to what is within me? I need a form of relationship with God. That's why they say that alcove is the only prison where the key's inside. The key's inside. And you notice the beauty about yourself. We judge people. We look at the surface and condemn people. I live right by San Francisco. People drive by the ocean all the time and just don't even look at it, just ugly ocean. But how do you know the ocean is beautiful? You grab a tank and a scuba mask and you dive inside. You have to look inside. You can't look at the surface. The other thing about the ocean too is I could go out there and take a big old bucket of water from the ocean, bring it back to my house, and they can start to evaporate and go down to a drop. But guess what? Before it evaporates and goes away, I can take it back to the ocean and it can regain all the power of its source. Remember my conception of God, I mentioned the punishing, the unloving. Something happened when I did step 5. I discovered I was punishing, I was angry, I was unloving, I was judging, I was critical, I was mean, I was humorless, I was hard to find. The God I resented and feared was really me. The idea that I've always had, about God was a characteristic of me, and I put that towards God. It wasn't God that, that made me run from divine help. It was me. I built God in the image and likeness of myself. But, I took an unlimited power and gave him my characteristics. And did not exist anywhere but inside this mind. And remember when I told you about the feelings for a friend? You have me list my friends. Something happened to me as well when I started doing step 10, over a year and a half of doing 10. It was a little over 2 years or so. I probably had these characteristics for a while, but I knew I was changing. I started to have unconditional love, loyalty, honesty, respect, unselfishness. I look for good in others. I had that unconditional love, forgiveness, calmness. I was no longer judging, honest, but I'm dishonest. I became humble, and I wanted strength, freedom. This God was real, who I could take with me wherever I go. And the thing I discovered was this God loved me no matter what I've ever done. So check this out. Some of you guys might be able to see this up close. It's an acorn, right? We know it's an acorn. It's actuality, it's an oak tree, right? It's an oak tree. You might, before you go, what this guy is talking about. This little acorn, it's the ultimate symbol for spiritual growth, unlimited potential. It's a symbol of transformation and change because it turns into something totally different than the way it was. It's hard to believe this little acorn can grow into a big, strong oak tree. It doesn't look anything like the image and likeness of its creator, does it? And once this acorn falls from the tree, it hits the ground, and this mysterious miracle takes place. The acorn knows exactly how to turn to get enough sunlight. It moves to get enough water. Germination takes place, and the roots sprout, into the ground to find the right soil. This tells me this little acorn within has all the information it needs to survive, right? And it turns into what it's encoded to be, the image and likeness of its creator. My question to everyone is, are we any different than this? We too, within, have all the information we need to survive. So the symbol of the acorn is the miracle, that is deep down within inside of us all. That is why when I see an acorn, I don't see an acorn, I see an oak tree. The oak tree is within the acorn. And just like God is within all of us, so when I see you, I see God. What the oak tree is to the acorn, God is to you. We too can transform into the image and likeness of our creator if we get past our beliefs that have been handed to us. Think about that. Hypothetically, there's another one. Let's say you ask, let me switch up real quick. Let me say another one. Hypothetically, let's say you ask an apple pie, what are you? And the apple pie says, I'm what I came from, apples. It's not going to say pineapple, right? You would expect it to be like what it came from. We understand that. Simple, right? But when many are asked, what are you? They think of a package of bones, internal organs. We don't understand that we too must be like we came from, that we are pieces of God. We came from divine source. What is our what we are is infinite, unlimited, kind, loving, that all those things exclude no one. When you understand what you really are, you will know you're not a human being trying to have a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being who's dealing with a human experience. We are the essence and greatness. So we must be like we came from. I'm going to put up my cover sheet for tonight. So this is just to remind us a little bit where we've gone. Step one. Oops, God. Step one, physical allergy, mental obsession, problem, powerless. We saw that last week. So I got to find this power. Willing to believe in a power greater than yourself. The solution to have that power is steps 4 through 9. That's the most important words you can possibly know. It gives you hope. It gives you willingness to believe. Simple as that. Simple as that. So is step 2 about finding power greater than yourself? Is it only about that? It's also about the nature of your insanity. Example, a person comes and they breeze through step 2 just because they like God and they have God, but they hate their wives, their family, and their kids and their job. They can't stand any of those people. They drive him crazy, and he hates the boss. Does that sound like a person that's sane? No, you need to look at it. And what is the nature of my insanity? Fear, anger, insecurity, whatever it is. Well, we will discover that within the steps. But you can't become sane without moving forward. The question is, what drives that insanity? And we'll get more into that. Let's go to 46. We have a little bit longer tonight than normal because there's a lot of information. 46. As soon as we admit a positive existence, a creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe, underlying the totality of all things, we begin to be possessed.
I didn't get that.
Oh, whoa.
Could you try again?
It was possessed. As soon as we became admitted to the existence of creative intelligence, a spirit of the universe, underlying the totality of all things, we began to be possessed, which means driven by something, a new sense of power and direction. New power and direction, provided we took other simple steps 4 through 9. Now, here's the big part. We found that God does not make too hard turns for those who seek him. Now, look how he describes the spirit within us. To us, the realm of the spirit is broad, huge, roomy, all inclusive. It doesn't leave anybody out. Never exclusive or forbidden to those who earnestly seek. Seeking is the key. It is open, we believe, to all men. It's telling us that we can have spiritual resources beyond our ordinary personal power that can heal us if we're willing to do the work. 47. And this is where a big part where you take step 2. We need to ask ourselves but one short question. Do I now believe, or am I willing to believe, that there's a power greater than myself? As soon as a man can say he does believe or is willing to believe, we emphatically assure him he is on his way. It's been repeatedly proven among us. Upon the simple cornerstone, a wonderful spiritual structure can be built. So a cornerstone is, I'm going to put one more slide. I promise, last one. Oops, I just did it wrong. Hold on. So last week we talked about this foundation, right? This foundation. And this foundation is a step 1 foundation. The foundation has to be strong and powerful, right? And it has to be built to last. And that's why step 1 is the only step you do 100%, because there can't be no lurking notion that one day you don't have this allergy. You think you can beat it on your own. So they said it's cornerstone. So what's a cornerstone? This is what we're building here. So it's a cornerstone is any construction worker probably knows what it is in here. The first stone laid at the corner where 2 walls will eventually link link into the foundation. So it kind of has a little bit of a hook here. It comes down in there, and of the new building. Eventually, everything depends on that, right? We're gonna be, the reason I'm showing this to you because we're gonna be building this arch. We'll have a complete arch in no time in here. I'm gonna close this up. So let's go to page 53. And look what it says here. When we became alcoholics, crushed by a self-imposed crisis, it wasn't my upbringing, what people did to me. It's not God's fault. We cannot postpone or evade. We had to fiercely face the proposition that either God is everything or else he's nothing. God is or isn't. What is our choice to be? God is everything or else he's nothing. Am I willing to make the choice that God is everything or nothing? I'm gonna do some questions in a second. I mean, out loud questions, not for you to answer, but I'm gonna read my favorite sentence on God. That's on page 28. And then we're gonna get into a short closing questions. 28. It says, we in turn sought the same escape with all the earnestness of drowning men. Saying, take to the steps of the drowning person. If any of you are almost drowned, that's pretty scary. What seemed at first a flimsy reed is proven to be the loving hand of God. A new life has been given to us, if you prefer, design a living that really works. So when I work with a sponsee, before I ask them those questions, the cornerstone questions and all that, like, are you willing to believe? I'm gonna read these questions out loud. You can write them down if you want, and anyone wants them, I can give them to you. Here's the questions I ask a person in step 2 when we're done. Is a belief in God sufficient to overcome alcoholism? I ask them that question. Is a belief in God sufficient to overcome alcoholism? Does your ideas of God help you to overcome alcoholism? I want them to think a little bit. Has human power worked for you to overcome alcoholism? Are you open-minded about finding a power greater than yourself? Because right here, I may have to stop and talk to them more. If once they say yes, 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 are you willing to take the action to find that power? Do you believe, or are you willing to believe in a power greater than yourself? Okay, I'm willing to believe. Then we completed step 2. We're moving on to 3. So I'm going to close this tonight with I like to begin with the meditation, kind of close with the meditation. If anyone wants to hang out afterwards and ask questions, that'd be great too. So close your eyes if you wish, relax, and just listen this about God within. We've talked about it a lot in here. And just take this in for a second. Within our inner core, we have our most precious gift. That we're born with. So much closer to you in your own breath. Most people live in delusion. This gift can be found outside of them. They have no idea this gift is already within. The spiritual identity within you, within all of us, is here and now. This is the great reality, God within. It's not that you are God, it's you have God inside of you. Every spiritual tradition, religious traditions, have the same precept that life's ultimate truth lies within. The greatest teachers have taught the kingdom of heaven is within you, Jesus declared. Buddha said, even though I don't use the word God, they thought my thoughts are always from truth, for my truth lies within. Latus, all light is within. Shiva clarified, seek your senses and you will see the Lord within your heart. Native Americans believe that the center of real peace is within. These religions and spiritual traditions call this treasure many names. Buddhists call it nirvana. Tao calls it the Tao. The Australian Aborigines called it dream time. India, they call it yoga. Plato called it the good and the beautiful. Aristotle called it being. Carl Jung called it infinite. Ralph Waldo Emerson called it oversoul. While these names are different, the inner reality is the same. Whatever you call it is waiting for you to experience. This utter simplicity, this light pours into your soul and awakens you. So we enter that region, which we had never been before. And that manifests the miracles of our lives before our eyes. by opening a way out by which we thought we never had. It shows us that the work, I can do the work that's appointed to me. It lets me see where I thought I was weak. I am strong. And when this door opens, you will discover infinite possibilities. But to honor this truth, first you must find it. It will be the most worthwhile journey in your life, the deepest journey of your life. But the message to life is first you must locate it when you must seek it. And what you seek, you shall find. So it's then your life will be filled with compassion, forgiveness, love, kindness. Picture a lake with many ripples. As your thoughts become still, the ripples will subside, and the water becomes calmer and calmer until the lake becomes perfectly crystal clear. It's very similar to the peace we get from God. When I close my eyes, I see it. When I silence my mind, I hear it. When I still my body, I know it. You know, the eye which I see God is the same which God sees me. My eye and God's eyes are one. One sight, one knowledge, one love. So within the gateway of God is where my pain becomes my glory. That's the beauty of this. And think about this. He who knows his own self knows God. All we gotta do is face our deepest stuff. Everything I believed that was something, all this crazy stuff turned out to be nothing, but the nothing I was left with was everything. I'm going to end with this prayer. The second step prayer that one of my friends wrote years ago. Today, I am willing to believe in a power greater than myself. I believe if I'm willing to stop doubting and take the necessary action to seek that power, my spirit, my mind will be restored. Amen.